John, my husband, who I married 5 years ago, looked down on me because I couldn't work. He would constantly complain to me, and even if I was sick with a high fever, he'd demand I do the household chores. Worse yet, when I was hospitalized after a traffic accident, instead of being concerned, he dared to bring his mistress, Kate. "You can't even make my lunch. Useless. Let's get a divorce. Oh, and you owe me $30,000 in alimony." Ha ha. Fine. Here's the divorce papers. I quickly signed them and handed them over. It's too late to regret it now. It's your fault for talking back and not making food. Kate, tilting her head, said, "But she can't work, right? How is she going to survive now? Maybe she'll find another guy and leech off him? With that face, it's doubtful though." "John, you're too blunt." The two of them laughed uproariously. As the sounds of their laughter faded, I smirked. "So he's been cheating for 2 years, huh? Enjoy laughing while you can. Be prepared for what's coming. My name is Camilla, a 35-year-old housewife. 6 years ago, at a class reunion, I reconnected with John, a classmate from elementary school. Our mothers were close friends, so we knew about each other's lives. But it had been a long time since we last met. John, always the popular one in class, was still as charming as ever. Being a shy person, I was in the corner drinking. But we caught the same taxi and bonded over movies and TV shows, leading to us dating. At that time, I had been worn out from the intense workload at my new job and was living off allowances from my parents and a part-time job. After dating for 6 months, John proposed. "You can be a stay-at-home wife, Camilla. I learned enough for both of us." I believed his reassuring words and married him, never imagining that he would betray me just a few years later. Once we began living together, John changed dramatically. In school, he was popular and well-liked by teachers, but it seemed his personality had changed as he grew up. When he came home, he would endlessly complain about his colleagues and bosses. John wouldn't stop, even during meals. Even when I tried to watch TV with him, he'd say he wasn't in the mood and continue ranting. "That guy is an idiot, just because he's good at buttering up to the boss. He got promoted before me. I see. I can't believe my boss, with such a low-level college degree, dares to order me around. While it's okay once in a while, having to listen for hours every day was stressful. Even if I tried to change the topic, he'd bring it back. You have it tough, John. Oh, I need to take a bath soon. And I'll join you." In the bath, John would continue his complaints and then leave, ignoring the fact I was feeling faint from the hot water. If I didn't listen, he'd become grumpy, so I had no choice but to oblige. Well, someone like you who gets 3 meals and a nap wouldn't understand my struggles. I wish I could just relax all day. And he'd always end with this, which really irked me. After all, it was John who said it was fine for me to be a housewife. I wasn't just lounging around. I kept our home spotless and made sure meals were delicious for when John returned from work. "I'll handle the household since I don't work outside," I declared to John. I loved cleaning and cooking, so I had no complaints there. But as time went on, John took my obedience for granted and became more demanding. Lately, he wouldn't even make his oni or pick up a fork he dropped on the floor. For instance, one day, I chatted with a visiting neighbor at the front door, and when I returned to the kitchen, John, who was sitting at the dining table, seemed oddly annoyed. "You took too long." "Really? I think our chat was only about 10 minutes. Is something wrong?" Night is gone cold. Make me a new one. I frowned upon hearing his demanding tone. There's a teapot with tea leaves right next to the kettle, so it would be faster if he made it himself. But when I pointed that out, John became even angrier. That's a woman's job. Didn't your company stop having tea-serving rotations? The older female employees in my company are rather assertive. But naturally, a wife should obey her husband, right? This was his usual attitude. When I had a high fever and was bedridden, he became extremely grumpy. With my hand against the wall to support myself, I greeted John at the front door when he returned from work. I'm sorry, I've got the flu. I probably won't be able to do household chores for about 3 days. Could you buy some takeout or cook for yourself? With a temperature of over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, everything was spinning, and I could barely even stand in the kitchen. When I hesitantly conveyed this, John made a very displeased face. You're a failure as a housewife if you can't cook. I'm sorry. As I hung my head, John shouted at me. It's your fault for getting sick, but don't infect me. I'll be careful. Can you buy some sports drinks and instant food for me? Go get them yourself. He coldly retorted and only bought his own food from the supermarket, making me feel lonely. Due to my infectious disease, I wasn't allowed to go to crowded places for a week. Having no choice, I only drank water for several days and decided to cook for myself when I felt a bit better. Late at night, while I was washing the pot, John returned home. He had been working late and going out drinking a lot recently. Welcome home. You're late again today. And like you, I'm busy. If you're feeling better, make food for me. I can only manage to make my food right now. Upon refusing, John's eyes widened in anger. He slammed his fist on the dining table and shouted, Thanks to whom are you eating? When will you start working? I'm sorry, please wait a bit longer until I feel better. John clicked his tongue in annoyance and went to take a shower. The moment he left the room, I collapsed on the spot. I was scared. I can't stand this anymore. I want a divorce. I wiped my teary eyes with the back of my hand and bit my lip. But how can I explain this to my mother? I had just become financially independent, and it would be a shame to ask her for help again. Furthermore, in front of my mother and my mother-in-law, John acts like a saint. Would they believe me if I told them what was happening? A few days later, while I was reading a magazine on the sofa after finishing my chores, my mother called. How have you been? I've been looking after my grandchild during the day, so I haven't had time to call. Hearing her gentle voice, my tears started flowing again. What's wrong? Actually, I bravely confided in her about the treatment I received from John, and she was furious. Camilla, it's okay to get a divorce. Come back here, but you're living with my brother and his family. I can't work, so living alone in an apartment will be difficult. My voice dropped, but my mother confidently explained. Don't worry about money. You see, I've completed the process of handing over your grandmother's inheritance, which she left behind when she passed away last year, to Camilla. Oh, right? There was an inheritance. How much is it? You'll be shocked when you hear. Upon hearing the amount from my mother, I almost dropped my phone. My voice involuntarily went high. No way, is it really? Yes, it's true. So, there's absolutely no need for John to support you. Got it. I'll think about the divorce. Thanks to my mother, my heart felt a bit lighter. Once I've fully recovered from the flu, I'll get a divorce paper from the city hall. But just as I was starting to feel better, I got into a traffic accident. While crossing the pedestrian lane, a car that wasn't paying attention to the road ahead hit me. I was rushed to the hospital in an ambulance with bandages around my head and my right leg hanging, and was moved to a private room. According to the nurse, I'd need to be hospitalized for 3 to 4 days to get a CT scan and MRI. If there's no issue with my brain, I'll be discharged using crutches. My broken leg is in such pain, even with painkillers, that I probably won't be able to do any housework for a while. I was feeling down, thinking that John would probably say something sarcastic when he came to the hospital wearing a suit. I was surprised he came to visit, but I was even more shocked by the young woman he brought with him. Who is she? She's my wife. What? I'm the new employee, Kate. I'm not his wife yet. John hugged Kate, who was playfully teasing, with an affectionate look on his face. By tomorrow, you'll be my wife. We met when I was job hunting 2 years ago, and now we're finally together. I quickly put the pieces together. John had been cheating on me with a young woman who looked like an idol, and he chose to introduce her to me while I was hospitalized. Without saying anything unnecessary, I calmly asked for an explanation. Is she the one you cheated on me with? Why did you bring her here? To make you realize, John said in a rough tone. You never did anything for me. You take for granted that I provide for you. And you're so ungrateful. I'm fed up. What? I didn't understand what John meant and responded in a dazed voice. Useless woman who can't even make my lunch. Pay me $30,000 as compensation for the divorce. Ha ha ha. So John plans to divorce me and marry his mistress. I was more amused than angry. Even though men can remarry soon after a divorce, isn't this a bit too soon? Fine, here's the divorce paper. As I signed and stamped the divorce paper that John handed me, he looked surprised. You sure understand things easily. I was thinking of filling one out myself. This worked out perfectly. While handing him the divorce paper, I kindly informed him. You do know that tomorrow starts a 3-day holiday, right? Even if you submit it today, it won't be processed until 4 days later. No, really? Well, I knew that. John tried to cover his surprise by acting boastfully. Camilla, once you're discharged, move out of the apartment immediately. We're going to live there. Understood. Feel free to do so. I wouldn't want to start a new life in a place with traces of my ex-wife, but it seems Kate doesn't mind. Misinterpreting my silence as sadness, John sneered at me. It's too late for regrets. It's your fault for talking back and not cooking. Is that so? Even if she has a fever of over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, crawling around cooking and cleaning the house? That's a wife's duty, right? The only one who can use feeling ill as an excuse is a young and cute woman like Kate. Kate, tilting her head at the haughty John, said, But your wife can't work, can she? How will you live from now on? Maybe she'll just snag another man and leech off him. Though with that face and her age, it might be impossible. Hey, that's a bit too blunt. Laughing out loud, the two of them left. As the footsteps of John and Kate faded, I smirked. So they've been having an affair for over 2 years. Enjoy it while it lasts. Better brace yourselves. 4 days later, I, having been discharged from the hospital, was packing up at the apartment. I'd been receiving calls on my phone since morning, but I'd ignored them because I was busy with the discharge procedures. I could guess what they were about, and I didn't want to answer. But thinking it might be troublesome if I kept ignoring and angered him, I reluctantly answered. Hello. Hey, what's going on? Startled by his shouting, I quickly pulled the phone away from my ear. What? Both Kate and I got certified mail demanding $30,000 in compensation. What's this about? Well, I sent you a message about it, demanding compensation. Didn't you read it? I didn't know. There's no way a new employee like Kate can pay such a large amount. Swallowing the words, "It's your fault for cheating if you can't pay," I said. Then why don't you cover for her? Husbands are obligated to pay their wives' debts. Why should I have to pay you compensation in the first place? You're the one who skipped out on your duties as a wife? If anything, we should be demanding $30,000 from you. Holding my forehead and sighing, I thought, do I really have to explain this? Are you with Kate right now? Yeah, we're in a hotel. Then come over together. I'll explain everything. Fine. 30 minutes later, the two of them arrived at the apartment. I let in a soaking John and a nervous-looking Kate and served cold tea. Sorry for the mess. I'm in the middle of moving. Forget that. What's going on here? Our happy newlywed life is going to be ruined. Watching John comforting a dejected Kate, I gave a faint smile. A happy marriage. Why are you laughing? Even couples who have affairs have the right to be happy. If you want to be happy, pay the money properly. You call it an affair, but we genuinely love each other. In her sweet voice, Kate persisted. Exactly. We just met a little late. It's a fateful encounter. We were lovers in our past lives. So please don't just dismiss it as an affair. Watching the two of them cling to each other, I felt suffocated even with the AC on full blast. If you didn't want to cheat, you should have divorced me before starting a relationship. Saying this in exasperation, I saw John's face twisted in displeasure. What? I was taking care of you out of pity. Don't you think you should be more grateful to me? I appreciate that you worked hard. I nodded in agreement. But I too gave it my all for 5 years. I took care of all the household chores since I didn't work outside. And I put up with your abusive words. Wasn't that enough? When you abandoned taking care of me when you got the flu or had an accident. Despite being my wife. That's why I should be demanding compensation from you for not doing your housework. Exactly, ex-wife. John's right. I started to feel dizzy. How can I explain to this foolish couple about cheating and compensation? If it wasn't going to get through to them, I should have called a liar. I took a sip of tea to calm myself, then spoke to the two of them as if explaining something to a child. Look, the obligation to provide for someone is for elderly parents or infants who can't support themselves. John is capable of working and can take care of himself. There's no obligation anywhere for a wife to take care of her husband. Really? Is that so? I don't understand complicated stuff. John, tilting his head, then turned to me with a question. Then, I don't have to pay you any compensation, right? Look, you cheated on me, right? I'm saying you should compensate for the emotional distress you caused me. I raised my voice in frustration, and John smirked. Ha! Just for having fun with another woman for 2 years? Wait, it was just for fun. That's so mean. John quickly tried to amend his statement. No, I was serious. My bad. Exactly. How rude. Especially when you have a child. Upon my statement, Kate's cheeks turned rosy. John froze beside her. A child? You seem well-informed, ex-wife? Someone saw you coming out of the maternity clinic yesterday. John stared at the blushing Kate as if he could bore a hole through her. And wait a minute, you're pregnant? Yeah, 2 months along. It's exciting, isn't it? Give me a break. Why did you decide on this without me? John shouted at Kate in anger. Kate blinked in surprise. Why? I hate kids. Don't make unnecessary decisions. Tears welled up in Kate's eyes. John, that's so cruel. I thought it would be a pleasant surprise. Why would you say such a thing? Once you have a kid, you'll age rapidly. You'll probably slack off taking care of me too. That's why I don't want kids. Even if you say you don't want it, it's our precious baby. Seeing Kate crying, I consoled her with sympathy. John is like that. You didn't choose well, did you? I believed that John would be happy. I wouldn't recommend marrying him. Why don't you find someone else and build a warmer home? As she sobbed, Kate murmured softly, "Yeah, maybe I should." John, looking annoyed, gazed intently at Kate, his expression turning to one of surprise. Huh? What do you mean? You didn't know. Kate's been seeing other people too. What? I scoffed at the bewildered John. Kate is much younger than you and so cute. She has plenty of potential suitors. Did you really think she was into you? A 35-year-old man. 35 is still young. Oh. But when it comes to me, who is the same age? I'm an old lady, right? John's ears turned red as I giggled. Wow, did you hire a detective or something, ex-wife? Kate exclaimed, chatting away. Out of the 5, John had the highest income and the brightest future. He's so into me because of the age gap. And I don't have to worry about him cheating for a while. But I didn't know he didn't like kids. That was a research oversight. Resting her chin on her finger, Kate nodded thoughtfully. Well, guess I'll try my luck with the second guy. Finishing her tea, she stood up, waved to the dumbfounded John, and said, "Bye, John. I'll file the divorce papers, so don't worry." Hey, wait, Kate. You'll be paying the alimony, right? Of course. Leaving the stunned John behind, Kate quickly left. It's a shame, isn't it? A 3-day remarriage instead of a 3-day reign. Sorry for you. John glared at me, who was chuckling. What did you do to Kate? I just hired a detective to check on her background. I replied calmly. You started working late and coming in on weekends suddenly, right? When I got suspicious and had it investigated, I found out you were cheating with Kate. Pulling out a thick envelope, I spread numerous photos and several reports across the table. Looking at them again, they were all rather embarrassing. Photos of them holding hands, hugging each other at stoplights, and even kissing. The sight of a middle-aged man with a protruding belly and thinning hair getting cozy with a young girl looked quite unsightly. And when I looked into her, I found out she was the intern you trained last year. Isn't that against company policy? John grimaced. None of your business. Well, anyway, I've known since last year that you've been cheating. And I've been timing when to bring up the divorce. At my words, John smirked. Aren't you forgetting something important? What? How are you going to live without my salary? With a smug expression, John continued. You said wives don't have to take care of their husbands. But for the past 5 years, I've taken care of you. Thanks to the salary I provided, you've enjoyed a luxurious life with 3 meals a day and naps. I'll be getting alimony from both of you. In response, John smirked maliciously and moved closer to me. That money will run out before you know it. Without me, you'll be headed straight for poverty. What a pity. John laughed mockingly and proposed a deal. If you apologize for what you said earlier, I might consider remarrying you. I'd love to see you prostrate yourself, but since you have a cast on your leg, an apology will suffice. And of course, without any alimony. So, what will it be? With his arms and legs crossed, John looked at me, eagerly awaiting my response. Suddenly, the door separating the living room and the room burst open. and my mother-in-law, Amy, followed by my mother. "You foolish son, stop it right now." Amy gave John a good smack on the head, leaving him stunned. "Mom, why are you here?" "I'm here to support Camilla, who's on crutches. You're obviously no help. Did you really come all the way from the suburbs? Did you rat me out?" As John got aggressive towards me, Amy put him in his place. "I heard about Camilla confiding in her mother." "What's wrong with a daughter consulting her mother?" Amy, having silenced John, bowed deeply to both me and my mother. "Camilla, you've been holding this in for 5 years. Worried about our relationship becoming strained. I'm truly sorry for the trouble my son has caused you. Go on, you two." Amy grabbed John by the head, and reluctantly, he also bowed to me. With genuine remorse, Amy continued, "Every time you two came over for holidays, you seemed so happy. I had no idea my son was acting so domineering and even had an affair. How embarrassing. I'm sorry, Mother, for not getting along with John." Amy gently tapped my slouched shoulders and gave me a reassuring smile. "It's not your fault, Camilla. Ask for as much alimony as you want, be it $30,000 or $50,000. He earns a lot, so don't hold back." "All right, I'll pay the alimony." Realizing he stood no chance against the two mothers, John raised his hands in surrender and, with a cheeky smile, pleaded, "Actually, I've been splurging on Kate, so I'm a bit short on cash. It would help if you could reduce the alimony to about $5,000. Well, the $30,000 earlier was for the affair. Adding in for your abusive words, it'll be $40,000 in total. Honestly, I can live without it, but it's a matter of principle." "Wait, you have that much saved up?" My mother looked at me and then explained. "Remember last year when her grandmother passed away? She left Camilla her inheritance. No, with $9 million, you wouldn't struggle in your everyday life." "Really? Wait, $9 million? She was a famous businesswoman in our hometown." John, who had instinctively stood up, gazed at me seated across from him with a flattering look. "You share that money with me, right? It's shared marital property after all." "What are you talking about? We're divorced." "Right? So let's remarry. I apologize for everything. Please." Facing me, John prostrated himself on the floor. I replied with cold words. "But that's never going to happen. We're done here. Can you leave? Camilla, please. You're just in the way. If you're not helping, leave." Chased out by Amy, John returned to his business hotel. With the help of Amy and my mother, I finished packing and moved to my new apartment. John kept texting me, pleading for a second chance. I blocked his number and proceeded with the alimony through my liar. At the same time, I exposed our divorce's reasons to his boss. Upon learning John had an affair with a job-hunting student, his boss was furious. Since Kate had already left the company, only John was given a stern warning and demoted. Facing cold stares at work, he resigned. John paid me the alimony, using his savings and loans. Although he started looking for another job, his high pride became a hindrance, and he couldn't get help from his estranged family. Unable to pay his apartment rent, he moved to a rundown place and juggled multiple part-time jobs to repay his massive debt. Meanwhile, Kate couldn't pay the alimony, so her parents stepped in. With her 4 other boyfriends leaving her, she became a single mother. Although her baby was born healthy, she had to work from dawn till dusk to repay the debt taken on her behalf. After my fracture healed, I started learning about computers to avoid men like John, and I earned a certification. I severed ties with John, but I'm still close to my mother's friend, Amy. When I told her about starting a work-from-home job, she was thrilled. Lately, I've been able to live without financial assistance from my mother. Once I save enough, I plan to thank her by inviting her on a trip.